This week in IT SPARC Cast, OpenAI lands on Patch Planet, OpenAI and Broadcom like spicy chips, and POTUS goes nuclear. Greetings and welcome to IT SPARC Cast. I'm your host, John Barker.
And I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. Let's go see what's going on out there.
It's Monday, June 29th, and IT SPARC Cast News Bytes is a digest of the IT news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years experience working in IT or for IT vendors. And now, the News Bytes.
So, John, remember when
Yes.
we were asking if any of these AI companies were actually going to help secure anything? Is there some news there?
There is. So OpenAI has announced as part of its Project Daybreak, a new initiative that will help you find and patch open source bugs. So they call this Patch Planet, and it's a new initiative that helps maintainers of critical open source projects find, validate, and fix security vulnerabilities. This program combines OpenAI's cybersecurity-focused AI models with human experts from Trail of Bits, plus from HackerOne and Khalif. So rather than just reporting the bugs, the effort includes vulnerability validation, patch development, testing, coordinated disclosure, and long-term security improvements for projects. So this is great. This is exactly what we've been saying we needed. And this is the next step in the war that is already here between AIs discovering and exploiting bugs and AIs discovering and fixing bugs. So I'm really, really excited about this. The participants who takes part in this project, they receive security consulting, access to OpenAI security tools, automatic ChatGPT Pro level access, and then API credits for the development workload. So they're really making it easy for these coordinators that they're working with to get in and be able to do this without having any barriers to entry. So this early work's already uncovered vulnerabilities in major open source infrastructure that includes operating systems, browsers, networking software, and widely used libraries. The announcement comes amid growing concern that AI is accelerating vulnerabilities discovery faster than many open source projects can patch issues. And we've been talking about that. We keep saying that the rate at which vulnerabilities are being exploited is increasing at a rapid rate to the point that no human can keep up with it. So using AI to deal with this is great. So, Lou, what do you think about
Well, honestly, this is, first of all, you're exactly right. This is what we wanted to see. We hope we see more of this from other vendors. But this is sort of not pick up your free open source project, for a small widget and take it over and get free consulting. These guys are doing it, in my opinion, they're doing it right. They're starting out with the critical infrastructure, things like, so initial project participants are like curl, Python, Go, SigStore, PyCA cryptography, AIO HTTP, NAT server, free Nginx. They are really concentrating on the bedrock pieces, those little blocks that when they fall, the entire stack falls. So this is just the beginning. What I would love to see is vendors like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and others introduce low-cost plans for open source projects. Anybody who starts an open source project, you can get a really inexpensive plan, add it onto maybe whatever AI you're already using, because chances are you're paying for an AI anyway.
Yeah.
That would be really useful. I think we'll see that as things start to scale.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see tools like this get integrated directly into repositories like GitHub. And then it just automatically part of the service. You check it in, it starts investigating and finding issues and reports them to you. And you can choose a check mark, fix it for me automatically, or just report it to me and then let me know how to fix it, that kind of thing. I think that's really where this needs to go.
And I would say the purists might fight over this, saying that everything has to be free and I like to code by hand and I'm using Emacs with my toes or whatever. But the reality is that you probably have a GitHub account. You are paying for internet already. You're paying to power your computer. You bought your computer. And having an AI coding assistant is one of the most transformative things out there.
Yeah.
So adding a small amount of money to increase the security, in my opinion, is acceptable.
So speaking of powering things, what's going on in the US?
It has been an exciting week for nuclear power. And so let me go ahead and cover a few things. I'll give you a couple of asides. We've had two small modular reactor vendors go critical. One of them right now, at the time that we're making this recording, Valor, has been running for over 24 hours at full output power of their experimental reactor, which is a helium cooled, it's a gas cooled reactor. So that is just freaking fantastic. But the Trump administration actually had an announcement that will impact in a different way. It all relates. So let me explain this. They announced $17.5 billion in loan guarantees for new nuclear reactors. We'd say, well, what's the deal? We're already doing small modular reactors. This is not for the same class of reactors. So this comes to us from AP News. And the U.S. Department of Energy will provide $17.5 billion in federal loans to accelerate constructions of 10 large nuclear reactors, right? So SMRs, small modular reactors, can be anywhere from about 300 megawatts down. The big folks tend to be in the gigawatt class. And the United States has one of the most advanced large reactor designs in the world, and they've been built all over the world. It's called the Westinghouse AP1000. It's an advanced pressurized boiling water reactor, generation 3 plus, inherently safe. Chinese based their designs for their reactors off of it. It is a really well proven. The problem is, if you want to build a bunch of reactors, the first thing you have to do is create the infrastructure to build a bunch of reactors. And that means you need startup money to rebuild. And this has been a lot of the same thing they've been trying to do with the small modular reactors as well, is build the industrial base. So what we need is to build these things. So the Department of Energy calls for 5 sites with 2 reactors each. So this is 10 gigawatts of power, folks. Was selected from 7 utilities that have already signed letters of intent. So there are 7 utilities out there that are like, yeah, we're going to build these things. Loans primarily fund long lead components. Once we get that stuff up and running, they won't be long lead anymore, right? So the whole idea is to bring that back online domestically. Construction could begin by 2030, which in power plant terms is really quick, with reactors entering service in the mid-2030s. The effort's driven largely by rapidly growing electric demand. So we're seeing AI data centers and hyperscalers. We're seeing a lot of FUD out there. Yes, SMRs are going to be a major help for this because you can site the reactor with the system, right? New Hampshire last year passed a law to make that easier. If you don't interconnect to the grid, they don't care. They're like, great, follow the rules, put your thing up. You're going to see a lot more of that, but we still need more power for other things. Electric cars and, taking coal plants offline, stuff like that. We're going to need to build nuclear power plants. John, what is your feeling on this?
Yeah, so I agree with you that we're seeing the largest, fastest increase in power consumption since the air conditioner became ubiquitous in the United States. And that was a massive spike in energy requirements in the US. And power costs are fairly high right now. So there's a concern. A lot of people have a legitimate concern about what data centers are going to do to their power bill. And I think there's ways to deal with that. But at the end of the day, we are going to need significantly more power generated in the US than we do now. And, I'm all for if you want to add more solar or whatever, but that's just not going to be enough. We need something like this. And this is great that it's happening. And I think that, you're right. It's not fast enough, but it's as fast as you could really realistically do, considering the people, the types of companies and the type of technology that we're talking about. So I think it's great.
Well, I mean, one of the things you can do with the AP1000 reactors are very well proven.
Yeah.
Certified everywhere. One of the things you can do is start knocking down those big coal plants.
Yeah.
And coal, even though coal is very cost effective from a fueling perspective, not so great for the air. So what I would really love to see is a mixture of nuclear and renewables being pushed into these segments, with small modular reactors being used to meet immediate data center demands.
Yeah, there's a big, not in my backyard kind of push, but I tell you, I used to live 2 blocks from a coal plant in Salem, Massachusetts. And I could see it from my windows. And every week, if I didn't keep up with the cleaning, if I rubbed my finger over any surface in the house, so that when it was summertime and I had the windows open, I would have soot on my and that wasn't even from the smoke. That was just from the dust of the coal, like, as they were processing.
Wow.
So I mean, it was really bad. I never really smelled it. I mean, I think that they've come a long way as far as making sure that the noxious fumes are not as bad as they used to be. A lot of scrubbing going on there, but still, there's just so much coal dust and so I would have loved if they had flipped that over to nuclear back when I was living there. So I think that this is one of those things that we need to really take the benefit and understand what it means.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of interesting efforts going on in this space right now. I mean, obviously, we're seeing much more demand because of AI and data center stuff. That is not going to decelerate.
Yeah.
We are going to be doing a lot of that. But the problem is it takes us so much time. People talk about orbital data centers. Oh, that's too expensive, right? When you start looking at the permitting and the costs of dealing with the lead times to get these new power systems up and running, orbital suddenly becomes feasible.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. We need to deal with that. I'd like to see a hybrid system where we've got inference in orbit, training and inference on the ground. We should try everything. But the point is that we need to start building better, cleaner systems. And it doesn't get a whole lot cleaner than nuclear. It really doesn't. I
It
used to
doesn't.
be a
Yeah.
radiation worker. But speaking of chips that pull power, we saw a really interesting new announcement on that.
Yeah, we did. So OpenAI and Broadcom has unveiled a new AI chip that they've named Jalapeño. And this is OpenAI's first custom AI processor. It was co-developed with Broadcom and in order to reduce the reliance on NVIDIA's GPUs, which are in short supply right now. The Jalapeno ASIC is optimized for AI inference versus learning. So this is designed to run the active ChatGPT and Codex instances versus training them. OpenAI says the chip was designed specifically around LLM workloads, focusing on memory, movement, networking, and serving efficiency rather than the general purpose AI computing. So Broadcom CEO Hock Tan claims that the performance is comparable to NVIDIA's Blackwell chips and Google's TPUs while delivering better performance per watt. So that's a big deal. We keep talking about energy being used. The independent benchmarks have not yet been released, but they will be coming soon. Engineering samples are already running in production, and this includes GPT-5 3 Codex Spark in the OpenAI labs. The chip reportedly went from design to tape out in just 9 months, with OpenAI using AI tools to accelerate parts of the chip development process. So we're moving quickly, and we're seeing how AI is helping not just software developers, but also hardware and ASIC designers to really increase their speed. So the manufacturing is going to be handled by TSMC. I think that's going to be an interesting thing as TSMC is building new plants, but I think that we're seeing that they're going to get bottlenecked as well. So, who gets the priority? Apple always gets a high priority when they release a new chip, their new M6 when it comes out, the new A19 or whatever it might be. So it'll be interesting to see how TSMC handles that. OpenAI plans to deploy Jalapeno across its entire infrastructure later in 2026 as the first steps of a broader multi-generation hardware strategy. So again, I think this is really exciting news. We need more vendors working on doing this so that we're not reliant on one vendor and we need more supply as well. So, we have a supply shortage. So both multiple options, some for training, some for inference, maybe some for both. But then also, competition is going to drive more innovation. We're going to see Google step up their game. We're going to see NVIDIA step up their game. It'll be great. Lou, what do you think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head by calling out them going with the TSMC process. TSMC is the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see. I know that Intel has been touting its 18A process, the 1.8 nanometer node process to other folks. So I'd like to be seeing more people picking up that. And I'd like to see where Samsung is going as well. They're a major fabber for custom chips. And that is another thing. But the real news, in my opinion, is it is continuing to show how the market is bifurcating and how we're scaling out. Because as you mentioned, it's inference, right? It's running the actual model. We first saw announcements of that last year, sort of in the startup world. There's a couple of startups out there that are doing that and doing it really well. Qualcomm jumped in with its chips, which are now shipping. They're going to have a more powerful one next year, obviously. And then you've got Google in there. They split the tensor line with their last Tensor 8 split into inference and training. So we're seeing this as a growing trend because of the absolute hunger for NVIDIA chips to train the workloads. We're also
Yeah.
seeing other vendors coming up in the training space like AMD. And of course, Google's got their own stuff, and we will see. I will not at all be shocked to see a training version of one of these chips come
Yeah.
out.
Agreed. It's interesting how in technology, everything kind of cycles. So if you think
Yeah.
about cloud's just really the newer version of the client server with mainframes in the back end, and you have a fairly dumb terminal or less compute capabilities closer to you. In this way, it used to be very common for vendors like networking vendors and others to build their own chips. And then they started going towards more commodity chips, mainly for Broadcom and Qualcomm and others like that. And now we're seeing this cycle back again that, we saw it with Apple for their iPhone line, their iPad line, and then eventually even for their computing platforms. But then for the AI side, we've seen Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft all coming out with AI chips. And so now OpenAI is following suit. And I think we may see more of it coming up as part of this cycle.
I mean, it's impressive that they went from concept to tape out in 9 months.
That is
They
impressive.
used to do that in the Valley a lot, but we're talking about TTL chips here or analog devices or whatever, literally cut into Rubylith.
Yeah.
Now, these things are complicated and they're huge. I mean, we're talking billion plus transistors, huge. And the fact that they were able to take an inference chip and do it in 9 months, we're seeing some similar reports out of Tesla and SpaceX right now for some of the stuff they're working on.
Yeah.
Those same kind of turns, tremendous increase in capability because of AI assisted design.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's one, just going back to some of our previous topics and other episodes where we keep saying, that AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI will. And this is what, we need CEOs to be looking at is how do I use AI to increase our output as opposed to reduce our costs? And those CEOs that are thinking about increasing their output, increasing their efficiency while maintaining a similar number of staff and a similar cost structure, they're going to succeed wildly, where the others are going to stay stagnant or even fail.
100%, they're going to win.
But before we wrap up today's episode, I did want to give you some listener feedback. And longtime listener Dennis reached out to us on YouTube. And this is a long one. And if you're on YouTube, I will post it up on the screen, but I'm only going to read some parts of it just to save some time. What he says is that this is based on the conversation we had last week about supermarket chain Tesco moving off of VMware into a custom designed system and what they're doing. And even though it was turbulent to do so, it was going to be more cost effective and more secure, meaning secure with their vendor, that they were very, not so happy with VMware. And what he says, what VMware offers decision makers is a false sense of stability and security. They are a company on regulatory life support. PCI DSS, IPAA, SOX, FedRAMP, ITAR. These are the only things driving VMware's continual adoption, meaning that those big laggards that just aren't going to move anytime soon are going to stay, but anybody that has the ability to move is going to. Without those pesky interlopers, there's no reason to put your business through the pain of keeping up with VMware's nonstop architectural pivots. You could spend that time building and customizing your own stack for free. He has a couple other points, but then he just wrapped up with saying that given VMware's bullying and desperate behavior over the last decade, I'm long on open source private stacks and private clouds. I've abandoned VMware's offerings entirely in favor of a platform I can build on my own today on my terms. Give me some bare metal and Linux kernel and let me run with it. And I got to say, he's got some good points here. We called this out when the deal between VMware and Broadcom closed. And that while Broadcom on the chip design side, I think that they do some great things. I think on the other side, it's really just this revenue extraction technique of buying established companies with large consumer bases, cranking up the price, not adding a lot of innovation, and then, just kind of being stagnant and drifting off from there. And I think that that's what we're seeing. And I think that Dennis has got some great points here. So I highly recommend you read his whole post there. But that is going to cover this episode. We couldn't do this podcast without listeners like you, like Dennis, and we want to hear what you think. Do you have another topic you want us to cover? Do you have a different take on what we talked about today? Do you think, no, nuclear is way too dangerous? Please let us know. We'd like to have a back and forth and debate with you. Or do you agree with us and want to add additional points? Let us know. Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com. Hit us up on X @ITSparkcast. If you're watching on YouTube like Dennis, you can leave a comment down below. We do read every comment, every bit of feedback we get. We respond to most. And if it's particularly interesting or insightful, we will read it out on the broadcast. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you'll never miss a single episode. We'll be back next week with more news and insights from the world of enterprise IT. Until then, take care.
Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you again next week.